I don't want to say it was almost like family, and at the same time, we were sharing experience with our neighbors in a totally integrated kind of way. There were lots of we had small children then too, and lived on the lake-hand side, and we were always doing something that focused on the children. You know, we were having the Halloween party or the Christmas party or something that required the neighbors on a voluntary basis to get together, and we learned and shared a lot of experience with our children, and I found that to be very helpful in integrating the children into the community as a whole, and also ourselves and our social life. We've been a member of United Christian Parish. I don't know how many years. I'd have to rely on a minute to give me that answer. But we have found that experience to be quite fulfilling as going to our churches. And now I want to digress to talk about culture shock, and J. Arthur touched on it, but Laura, I think, summarized it. And we were at someone's house for a party one Christmas holiday, and we were all talking about our experiences growing up and where we grew up, and the shock that we got when we came here. And they told us that the least expensive townhouse was $41,000. And the year before we moved here, we had just bought a 4-bedroom, 2,000, 3,000, square foot house in Detroit for $24,000. And our friends told us that when we came to Washington, there would be a 10% increase in house values. That did not exist. But the comment that Laura made, we was talking about housing and the cost and all that. And Laura said, I grew up in the Bronx, and for $40,000, you were not supposed to see the house from the road. And I think all of us have gone on to really participate in the community, some through the Reston Players Association, that was very helpful. And in fact, one of our neighbors, Gail Greenberg, is here. I think we've been knowing each other for, 40 years or almost that many, Gail? And Gail and Gail's daughter and our daughter established a business 15 years ago, much to the chagrin of each of our separate families. We thought, how can anybody want to start a pet sitting business in Reston? I mean, that is just not the thing to do. They've been at it now for 15 years. They're still partners. They're still talking. They're still best friends. And I marvel at that opportunity that existed in a place like Reston, who we had never thought I'd live in a community that I find is beneficial. The children enjoyed growing up here. It wasn't that we did not experience some issues with the school system. Some of those issues continue to this day. Our African-American children throughout the county, not just in Reston, but they receive the kind of attention and support they need to really thrive. Is there a built-in assumption? I remember very early on in Reston, one of the biggest issues that really got a lot of attention from the African American community was one of the daughters of one of our African American friends attending Herndon High School was told to shut your black mouth, or some such term as that. And we decided that was Herndon and not Reston, which made us feel a little more safer and secure in Reston. But it was a shocking thing, and we as a community, came together, both blacks and whites, to deal with that level of conversation going on in the community. Laura? And I think that periodically those kinds of issues still surface in Reston. And I'm always amazed that, I shouldn't say amazed or surprised, but I always say, well, that's the new folks moving in. Whether they're black or white, it's the new folks, because those of us that have been around here for longer than a minute know that will not be tolerated. So,
I'd like to comment that Reston Black Focus was a fabulous organization, I thought, for me and for our family, because it seemed like even though you were part of the greater community, within an instant you could talk to a number of people who shared your concern. When I first started working in Fairfax County, I was working at West Springfield High School. And actually, I'd interviewed someplace else, and they had asked me if I'd been teaching in DC before that. They asked me if I thought I was capable of communicating with white children. And I didn't work there, but I did get a job at West Springfield High School, and I was working at West Springfield, and our daughter was at Herndon High School, and I can't recall now if she was a sophomore or junior, but she was in a biology class, and you had to sign up to go to the Black History Assembly in Black History Month. And so she asked her teacher for a pass to go to the program. And the teacher said, "You're too smart for that." And so Marla called me at work and said, you know, "Mommy, I want to go anyway." I said, "Absolutely." I said, "You go, and I'll be there in 40 minutes. And so I left West Springfield, and I came and met with them at Herndon High School, and this lady was a biology teacher. I was perhaps less charming than I might have been, but I was, but I mean, I was appropriate, I thought. And she said to me, she said, Marla was a good student, and she said, "I don't know how a lovely child like that could have a mother like you." I said, "Well, you know, really, she's lovely because I'm not." And every time you look at her, picture me standing behind her.
That's great. Let me take this opportunity to flag a few incidences regarding the schools in Reston. My daughter in high school, at South Lakes High School, sang in the South Lakes High School chorus. And had one day she came and told me, "Oh, Daddy, we learned this very beautiful song today." And I said, "Well, what's the song?" I said, "Could you sing a little bit?" And she said, "It goes like this. Oh, I wish I was in the land of old town there. I said, "What song is that?" "You can't sing that song." And so we went to the school and said, "You know, we can't, that song means a whole lot to us and to our family and to our, we just can't have our daughter to sing that song." And so what we did, we really pulled our daughter out of the choir. And so she never sang in the choir, except that she did sing because of her talent during the commencement exercises at South Lakes High School. So what has happened in many cases, we really don't know about it. I worked with several youngsters in a tutoring program that was run through my church, and we taught the children mathematics, we taught reading, we taught sometimes French, and we did this to support the children. When we looked at the statistics, or anybody looked at statistics, minority youngsters were underachieving, and significantly underachieving. And we want to know whether that's the fault of the children, is there something wrong with the children, is there something wrong with the system? And we gathered all of the statistics, and some parents wrote a letter, as a matter of fact, signed a petition that was submitted to the superintendent of Fairfax County Schools, saying what the problems were. In addition to underachievement, there was a feeling among some of the youngsters that they didn't belong in advanced mathematics classes. Some of the students who should have gone on to, after leaving the middle school, Langston Hughes to South Lakes, should be taking algebra. They were taking basic arithmetic. And it wasn't that they couldn't do algebra, they had put them in algebra. Nobody put them in. They were never even challenged. I even visited the school and saw the children just sort of out of it. So that what that told me that we had more work to do. The superintendent at that time sent a letter to the teachers or school administrators who happened to be African Americans who signed a petition to the superintendent, really sort of threatening that they could be fired because they worked in the school system. But of course, being sort of knowledgeable about what happened, we got a lawyer. And the lawyer wrote a letter to the superintendent, and that cut out what he was intending to do at that time. But I think that's been, hopefully we're doing a much better job. We do have problems, great problems in providing for gifted children, especially in my area, in mathematics and science, by having the school, the Jefferson School, that's really is not diverse at all. And so we really need to think about how we can have a school system that meets the needs of all of the students, not just a few students, and especially in science and technology.
What did the lawyer attempt to achieve in what he was doing in that kind of a thing?
What the lawyer did was said, don't mess with these teachers. If you mess with these teachers, you're going to get a big lawsuit that's going to reach people in Washington going to know about it, and Reston will know about it. It will be a bad reputation for Reston, this sort of ideal community, to have this kind of thing going on in the school system.
Well, wasn't this the lawyer that you had engaged?
Yes. The lawyer that we had engaged
And
told the
saying,
superintendent,
don't make waves?
told the superintendent not to fire any of the teachers, the superintendent wrote a letter really saying bad things about the teachers. And so we told him that he needs to withdraw that and apologize. And so the lawyer did, and it ended because the superintendent did apologize.
Okay, we're going to have a Q&A session after, in about 15 minutes. But I wanted to share an experience with my son. I was active with the PTA, president at Langston Hughes when my son was in junior high, middle school, and at South Lakes when he was at South Lakes High School. And a friend in the community named Faith Christian had a TV program called The Point of View, or some such title as that. And it was at a time when the national press was dealing with the topic of endangered young black men. And she had a panel of young black students, well, male students on this TV program. And they were talking about, now let me tell you, one of the reasons I got involved with the PTA is because I wanted to foster a closer, or give me one more reason to talk with my son and interact with him, thinking that was the magic wand. Well, it wasn't, but I thought I was doing my part anyway. But it was on this program, and one of the questions that the moderator asked him was, what were your relationships with the police in Reston? And my son said, you know, unbeknownst to me, never said it to me, when I'm in the car, the family car, and I'm driving and I have my white friends in the car, I never get stopped. But when I have my black friends in the car, I'm stopped. And he had never shared that with me. And I was surprised, of course. I wanted to talk about more when he got home. But to him, he was not traumatized at all by that. He was just sharing an experience, you know. And here I am going back to my Black Power days. And I just thought, this is generational, you know, and I'm happy with that he can toss it off. It's just another negative experience, no different from any other that he had. So I share that with you because I think it was a growing experience for me, and I'm sure it was a growing experience for him. But one of the things I was hoping we would talk about, our panel, is when our African American friends have moved from Reston was it ever a reason that they were disappointed in the community, that they didn't feel it fulfilled their needs, or was it jobs, or just wanting a change of environment? I don't remember ever having a discussion with someone, an African American friend that moved away because they didn't like the community.
No.
Okay, any thoughts on that? No? Okay, good. When you think about a desired community, and if you had to move from Reston to another part of the country, would you look for a community like Reston, or what kind of community would you like to live in, as we say in our golden years, if we moved away? Any responses?
Well, I would be hard put to not look for something similar to Reston. As I said, when I first came here, without hardly any income, excuse me, and a single parent of 4 little children, I had to have some place to live. And my European American family then came to my assistance, and I got into Cedar Ridge. And I remember Cedar Ridge is low-income housing, and low-income housing in Reston is mixed with not just low income, it's not all centered in one place, which creates a ghetto. I don't care what color you are. But I lived in Cedar Ridge in a 4-bedroom apartment, and I knew, as bold as I am and as hard as I worked, that I would not be there very long. But it provided me an opportunity to live in Reston, to look for greener pastures, which is what I did. And within a year and a half, after having a 4-bedroom place in Cedar Ridge Apartments, I moved to Deepwood, outside of Reston. My one bad experience having lived in Deepwood, not because of Deepwood, because I'm a tennis player, and I'm easily detected, of course, by the color of my skin. And I'm a pretty good, I was and I still am a pretty good tennis player. I told you I'm bold, didn't I? Well,
You were excellent.
when I
You
moved
were
to
excellent.
Deepwood, there were those who did not like my being a part of the Reston tennis courts, even though they were empty and I had time to play in the morning and noonday and after work. So I got a call, not at 6 o'clock during the dinner hour, not at 8 o'clock after dinner hour, but at 11 o'clock one night saying, Doris, stay off our Reston tennis courts. That's one of my bad experiences with Reston. But I managed.
Is that a Deepwood tennis court?
No, on the Reston tennis courts. A Reston member, tennis member.
Let me ask those of us who have adult children, do any of them, have they moved away from home and come back to live independently in Reston on their own? Or are they elsewhere?
I have a son who lives in Reston, has been active in the Reston Association. And he has a wife. He went to South Lakes, his wife went to South Lakes after him, after he did. And they have 2 wonderful children. If you have about an hour and a half, I can tell you about the children. But I think one of the high points for me in Reston, and I have been happy living in Reston. Last year, or was it the year before last, I went to see the kids swim in their swim meets at the Reston pool. They swim at the Glade pool. And I just felt that it had been a good thing to move to Reston because of the attitude at the pool. I've spent my life helping children become all they can become. And what I saw were children of all kinds, very athletic kids, gorgeous kids, kids who were disabled, kids who were little and scrawny, kids who could swim wonderfully well, and kids who were awful, and everyone cheered for every kid. Every kid was validated, every kid was encouraged. And I felt this is such a wonderful thing, not about swimming, but about all these kids learning that we are all in this together, and we will all accomplish something if we help each other along.
Carol?
One of the things we have are many of our folks have moved to Florida, I guess for warmth and for health reasons. I think the thrust now in aging is aging in place. And I want to age in place here in Reston. I think this is a wonderful community. I know the people here. The community center provides many activities, so and we have such great restaurants too. You don't have to go to Washington like you used to have to do to find, fun and those intellectual opportunities. So I went to Age in Place in Reston, perhaps on my same street, Old Trail Drive. And a lot of seniors move to gated communities. I don't think I'd like that because we miss the children and we miss, I think, the diversity that Reston has. And that is really a wonderful part of being part of Reston.
Let me also point out that Carol is very involved with the Reston Community Center as well. You were our president or were?
Yeah, I was on the Reston Community Center board this past term for 6 years, and then I was on the board a while ago. And it was a wonderful experience. The community center, when I was first on the board, people didn't even know we had a community center. And so I think the community center is a big part of what's happening in Reston. The community center tries very hard to provide lots of activities for all kinds of people. There are scholarships available for children and even families to come and participate in the activities. I'm no longer on that board, but now I'm working with Reston Interfaith, and I go to the shelter once a week. A lot of people don't know we have a shelter. A lot of people don't know we have people living in the woods, and we have children in the shelter. And recently I was involved in the 100,000 Homes, which is a national program, and we surveyed the residents of the shelter and of the woods to see if we could find those people the most vulnerable who needed housing. So there's lots of opportunities to grow yourself intellectually and spiritually, but there are lots of opportunities for us to share our gifts with other people.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say something about what Carol mentioned regarding the Asian community, that Reston is an Asian community. My daughter, many years ago, told us she was going to run for the Reston Community Center Board. And she did, and she won. So she became a member of the Reston, a youth member. What she did, she went around to all our schools, high schools, and got all the students to campaign for her, and she had campaign literature, and so she really won. One of the, I think, the issues that will come up in the future is that our children, at least most of the children I know, don't live in Reston. Even so we live here in Reston, but they live long ways. Some of them long ways away. So the question then is, as Reston becomes a learning community, how do you preserve with elderly folks like myself the kinds of things that will appeal to me that may not appeal to my daughter or my grandchildren. So I think one of the things, can we move forth the diversity? We're still in Virginia. This is, although we say it's Northern Virginia is Virginia, I feel that people are becoming much more conservative. They're not as likely as we were to make certain kinds of changes. They are not eager necessarily to help the poor or to help those who need medical care. And so what I think we should think about is how we can make a better future for ourselves, for our children, and for our grandchildren in this Reston community.
Yeah. I mentioned that earlier, that our daughter, when she was born, that's when we moved from Philadelphia to here, she grew up, went to grad school and was all over the place, and lived in China and the Middle East and so forth, but she's back here. So she's married with her and raising our first grandchild in Hunter's Woods. So we completed the whole cycle, 3 generations.
She's very pregnant now.
No, she's not.
I want to ask a general question. think we all moved to Reston because of our, maybe not, I did not know about Robert Simon and the history of the new town and the open community when we moved in. But once I realized that was part of the history and the significance of it, it made me feel a lot more comfortable with going into general community groups, whether it's the PTA or whether it was the RCA or whatever. And I'm wondering if you've sensed that, and the friends that you now know and African Americans, the rest of it, reaching out into the community beyond traditional African American organizations. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think we're reaching, especially through the church and other community organizations. We have Martin Luther King Jr. Christian Church, which does lots of activities, provides scholarships through a foundation for students throughout Fairfax County. And these scholarships, I think, to date, they've given out over $200,000 in scholarships to youngsters in the Fairfax County area. My wife works with the homeless community by providing food on Saturday mornings for persons in the Embry-Rooker Center as part of outreach from our church. And of course, we work with other churches in the community, not necessarily African American churches, but churches in general. So I think that we are reaching, at least some people are reaching beyond what you would normally do in Reston on the weekend and even sometimes during the week to reach out to help your brothers and sisters in seeing that their needs are met and that they are well fed, that they are well educated, and that they are supported in their lives in Reston.
Carol?
Yeah, Tom, you mentioned involvement, and what I see is a lot of people in our community, black and white, who are older and retired, are the people that are participating in all kinds of civic and service projects or activities. But there is a gap. There's nobody that is going to follow us. We don't see younger people coming forth to take these board positions or to be leaders, and that is a big concern of, I think, all of us. That I'm sure they're going to manage without us, but still, there's a need to maybe groom this younger generation, but also they have families, children, jobs, mothers and fathers are both working. But how do we reach that group so they can follow in our footsteps?
Carol, I agree with you on that. I look around and it's that, what I call the 35 to 45-year-old group that I just don't see engaged actively in the community. And I haven't come up with a reason. I mean, Min and I were both working, we both had, young children, and we still managed to be involved with the community and doing things. And I just thought, I don't know if it's because I just don't see them. I don't see them involved with the PTA groups when I'm involved. I don't see them involved. I just went to a meeting that the school board committee, and it dealt with the issue of disproportionality that's getting a big lot of attention in Fairfax County now, both in the school system and at the governmental level. And one of the things that impressed me about the meeting was that within Fairfax County and within the school system, there is a real willingness to deal with these kinds of issues of disproportionality as it relates to minority youth involved with the criminal justice system, with juvenile delinquency, the academic achievement levels of the minority students in the community, and those involved with some kind of a foster care system, whether it's adoption or through its provide permanency, those kinds of things. I see that there's a willingness on the part of these government institutions and community-based organizations to deal with those kinds of issues in an open way. They're not something that's shoved under the carpet or wherever one shoves and stuff like that. But there's a willingness, and I see that that's very important for the future of not only of Reston, but of Fairfax County. And one of the questions we had noodled about was that as looking up on Bob Simon's dream and vision, do we feel that it's a reality, and can it be a sustaining and continuing reality? I think that as African Americans, how do we feel about that?
Well, I think that his dream, of course, should be ongoing, but in some measures it's been realized.
Okay.
I think that Reston has ended up being much more than most of us would have expected when we first came here 40 years ago. We now live in the town center, and you only need to walk around the town center and you realize that everybody is there. There are old people, there are young people, there are people of every ethnicity that you can imagine, not black and white, but I mean every kind of person. All income levels, from homeless people to very, very financially fortunate people. So I think that that's really true. There's only one area in Reston that I think has not met his dream. And that too is in the Reston Town Center, because it's very vibrant. Everybody is there. There are, lots of places to eat and lots of places to buy things and lots of places to work. But there are very few mom and pop stores in the Reston Town Center. And I am more concerned about Lake Ann and Hunters Woods and Tall Oaks and all the other centers that I think that as a community we need to try and foster those more, and need to try to go out, when we go out to dinner, perhaps go there sometime, or because I'm not sure that those centers are what he would have dreamed for them to be. The rest of the town center is just great, but the rest of it, I'm not so sure.
I think you're suggesting that we're getting so affluent that,
Well, I don't know, it's not, what has happened, I think, and I'm not an economist in any way, but I think that the Reston Town Center has been so successful, and the people who own it, which of course is not us necessarily, they can price this little guy out of the market. You know, it's very expensive to rent a store up in the Reston Town Center. And so I think it would be hard for anyone who has a small business to rent a store. Because there are even very successful places that they say, I've been told, because I live there, so I just walk the dog up there. And they say the rents are really very, very high. And so they can't afford it. I don't know what the answer is. But I wish that there were places like the used bookstore in the town center.
Just any bookstore.
okay.
Yes, any bookstore. And I think that Barnes and Noble, and I understand they have their own issues, and they perhaps they wanted to give up that place anyway. But I've heard that the rent is very high.
Okay. I would like to now, unless the panel has any comments that you'd like to make, to open it up for questions and answers if there are some.
Just hold that thought.
Okay.
Let's do our raffle.
Oh,
And
we're
that
gonna
would
do
be-
that.
Why don't we do the raffle, and that'll give the panelists an opportunity to catch their breath and
Okay.
maybe stretch a bit. Oopsie.
The winner.
Might be the winning ticket. So why don't we pass this down to Vicki Wingert to pick a number for us?
Can I ask a question? How did you get a ticket?
I don't know.
Hold on just a moment. We need some raffle tickets.
Not everybody bought tickets, did they?
You didn't buy them. You got them pretty
Oh, you, okay.
When you signed in, you should have been given one, but you were put right down the entrance.
There's gonna give them some tickets.
Yeah.
I'd like one.
Right here.
The panelists. This one is laying on the floor by my feet.
Vern. Anyone in the audience needing a ticket?
Okay, where's the best?
Right here.
Never make it at Vegas.
Did you get one back? Right here.
Where? No, I know, but, oh.
And we do. I mean, this is really.
Now we'll draw.
All right, here we go again. Magic touch still. Okay.
Okay, the winner is 9607.
Oh, last 4 digits.
That's the last 4 digits.
The last 4 digits. Do we have a winner?
9607.
We have to act excited. You want to come up and get your picture?
Give a little speech.
And give a little speech?